Our first piece this evening will be Variation Overture by Clifton Williams. According to music publishing website J.W. Pepper, in addition to being an outstanding piece of music, this piece is important in that it vividly demonstrates that a substantial work can be written within a technical and an intellectual capabilities of younger musicians. Variation Overture is dedicated to the American School Band Directors Association. The Variation Overture is a serious effort on the part of the writer to utilize mature techniques of composition within a simple framework. The theme within its contrasting idea is treated in four varied ways, resulting in a piece cast in the form of a concert overture and made cohesive by the use of the variation principle. The actual writing of this work was at the American School Band Directors Association convention in Cleveland, Ohio in December of 1961. We hope you enjoy our first piece, Variation Overture. are award-winning songwriters who had a great success in the 1980s with mega hits like recorded by Madonna, Whitney Houston, and the one you were about to hear by Cyndi Lauper. Sing along to True Colors. It is now time for our John Philip Sousa March. Tonight we will play Manhattan Beach, written in 1893 to commemorate the Manhattan Beach Park Resort. The tune starts off quietly, grows loudly, and then fades away. We hope you enjoy this march, Manhattan Beach. 1986 American comedy featuring Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, and Martin Short. Set in 1916, the small Mexican village of Santo Poco is being terrorized by the notorious bandit El Guapo and his gang of thugs. The village leader's daughter searches for someone who can come to the rescue of their township's people. And while visiting a small village church, she watches a silent film featuring the three amigos. She believes them to be the real heroes and sends a telegram to Hollywood asking them to come and stop El Guapo. They receive the telegram, but misinterpret it as an invitation to make an appearance with El Guapo. The piece you are about to hear features the main title, The Ballad of the Three Amigos, My Little Buttercup, and Blue Shadows on the Trail. We hope you enjoy highlights from Three Amigos. Ridge Reel is a new piece for tonight. Concert bands meet a bluegrass in this innovative work that infuses a multitude of stylistic infuses with a contemporary framework. This piece features an infectious melody that grooves in the true bluegrass tradition. We hope you enjoy Blue Ridge Reel. The Greatest Showman, directed by Michael Gracie, is an unabashed piece of pure entertainment, punctuated by 11 memorable songs composed by Oscar and Tony-winning duo Benji Pasek and Justin Paul, who composed songs for La La Land as well as Broadway hit Dear Evan Hansen. The film is made for the whole family to enjoy. This is a difficult tightrope to walk, but credit is due to Gracie's, a perfectly cast Hugh Jackman and the entire cast, who played the story in the spirit in which it was written. The Greatest Showman positions itself as a story celebrating diversity and the importance of embracing all kinds. Arranged by Michael Brown, the highlights 4 songs of the 11: The Greatest Showman, This Is Me, A Million Dreams, and From Now On. And one of my favorites, we hope you enjoy, The Greatest Showman. like to thank Channel 990 and 991 and StTV.com for filming our performances each week. Let's please give them a big hand. And as you see, if it's raining or excessive heat, we will be in here. Otherwise, we will be down at the Valley Desert. Next, we have a guest conductor, Nate Keenery. He has been a part of the St. John School District for 15 years. The first 10 years were spent teaching music at Bloomsdale Elementary and helping with the marching band drum line. For the last 5 years, Nate has been the assistant principal of St. Genevieve Elementary, and he will be moving back to Bloomsdale this August to be the building principal. Nate states his achievement in musical mainly throughout his church, Grace Life Chapel, where he plays drums. His oldest child, Judah, has begun piano lessons with many band members, Stacy Bell and Nate, who loves hearing young music being made in the home. He is now to conduct the clarinet polka. Thank you, Nate. Up next, we have another contemporary piece that I'm sure you've heard. I Left My Heart in San Francisco. It is a popular song written in 1954 by George Corey and Douglas Cross, and best known as the signature song of Tony Bennett. It peaked at number 19 on the Billboard Hot 100. The music was written by Corey with lyrics by Cross, nostalgic for San Francisco and after moving to New York. The song found its way to Tony Bennett through Ralph Sharon, Bennett's longtime accompanist and friend with the composers. Bennett's first recording the song at CBS Studios in 1962. It became a hit on the pop singles chart in 1962 and spent close to a year on various other charts, achieving gold record status. It won a Grammy Award for Record of the Year, as well as for Best Male Solo Vocal Performance. Please enjoy I Left My Heart in San Francisco. Party through the syncopated clock, and a few other tunes we have played this year. Tonight we'll hear the Waltzing Cat, which turns smallsy string signs that are standard fare in a Strauss waltz into meows. This work opens with a lazy but chipper waltz theme. The middle section is reminiscent of a cartoon music with lots of playful cat and mouse-like action. The main theme returns in all its colorful nonchalance and charming meows in the latter half to close out this charming work. Anderson included this into the composer's note for the piece. If as you listen to the music, you imagine something like Puss in Boots as a fancy dress ball, that is just about what the composer had in mind. We hope you enjoy this interesting and humorous piece, The Waltzing Cat.
Next, we have another new piece for you to listen to tonight. The Big Top comes to life with this exciting circus march. Composed it in 1911 during Al Sweet's time as the band leader for the Ringling Brothers Circus. And we hope you will be thrilled with the sounds of this exciting march of the Ringling Brothers grand entry. Our final selection for tonight is the Eagles on tour. The Eagles are one of the all-time biggest acts in popular music since the dawn of rock and roll era. The band's roots go back to their roles as defining artists. And this piece, it features Heartbreak Tonight, Desperado, and Hotel California, and arranged by Patrick Rosell, the Eagles on tour.
Thank